Hey there, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. This is where we take the sources you share, articles, notes, research, and really dig in to pull out the crucial insights, helping you get informed fast. Today, we're focusing on the source material titled Iran's Missile Arsenal and Defensive Challenge.
Right. And our goal here, based only on these sources you provided, is to understand Iran's missile capabilities. We're looking at, the types of missiles described, their characteristics, and what these recent events might tell us about how they stack up against defenses.
Yeah, and the sources definitely highlight some major recent events. We're talking hundreds of missiles and drones launched by Iran in some cases.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's unpack this a bit. What jumps out right away from these documents is just the sheer variety of missiles Iran apparently has or is working on.
It's quite a list. And what's interesting is how the sources try to break down the different kinds. They talk about, for instance, solid fuel missiles. The Hypersonic is mentioned. Now, when the sources say solid fuel, what does that actually mean in practice for, say, defense?
Well, based on what's described here, solid fuel missiles. They can be kept ready to go, fueled up, and launched much faster than the older liquid-fueled types. That means significantly less warning time for anyone on the receiving end, makes them a tougher immediate threat, according to this information.
Exactly. Less time to react. And the sources go beyond just fuel types. They also emphasize precision. They bring up the Emad missile, for example, noting its high precision. The sources claim, accuracy around 10 meters?
10 meters, yeah. For a ballistic missile, that's a pretty remarkable. It suggests they could potentially aim for specific buildings, maybe even parts of a facility, not just a general area. That dramatically ups the potential impact, as the sources seem to imply.
And this is where it gets really interesting, because the sources then start talking about speed and maneuverability, especially with the newer systems they describe, like the Fattah-1, described here as a hypersonic missile capable of Mach 13 to 15.
Mach 15. That's incredibly fast. What kind of challenge does that speed pose for defenses, according to these sources?
Well, that kind of speed fundamentally changes the defense problem. The sources suggest Mach 15 leaves an extremely short window for tracking for interception. Many current systems, it seems, just weren't designed for targets moving that fast, and the sources also indicate that speed enables evasive maneuvers.
Right, evasion. And they mention even newer stuff, too. The Qassem Bassir missile, described as a 2025 system. Not just solid fuel and fast, but also maneuverable and with low radar detection features. They also mention the Haj Qassem, claiming in the sources it can evade systems like Iron Dome and Taiji.
Okay, so if you combine those elements, high speed, maneuverability, maybe low observability like the sources describe for these newer missiles, that's a major technical hurdle for defenses. Think about systems like Iron Dome, for shorter ranges, or THAAD for higher altitude threats. These sources seem to suggest these newer Iranian missiles, faster and more complex, are being designed specifically to make interception really, really difficult.
Their ability to change course or just be harder to see on radar, it could reduce the effectiveness of even pretty advanced defensive systems.
Now, let's connect this back to those large-scale events the sources mentioned, where hundreds of systems were launched. The sources are clear that defenses did intercept the vast majority.
Right. The overall intercept numbers cited are high, but, and this seems crucial in the source material, some of the more advanced missiles apparently did get through. The sources don't just state that, they interpret it. They suggest these newer, faster, more accurate, maneuverable systems are really pushing current defenses to their absolute limit.
And that feels like a key takeaway from these documents. Iran hasn't just built more missiles, it's developed this diverse, evolving arsenal. They're using solid fuel for speed, adding precision, and really pushing the envelope with hypersonic speed, maneuverability, and maybe stealth features in systems like Fattah-1 and this Qassem Bassir.
So, connecting this back to you, the listener, understanding these specifics from the sources like Mach 1315 for the Fattah-1, or that mix of speed, maneuverability, and low detection for the Qassem Bassir, it really highlights the specific, very technical challenges facing modern missile defense. It's not just about having interceptors, it's about dealing with threats designed explicitly to beat them.
So what's the bottom line here, based on this information? It seemed to paint a clear picture. Iran is actively developing and deploying missile tech that's getting significantly more advanced. And the sources suggest this represents a credible and evolving challenge to existing defensive capabilities.
Which leaves us with a pretty important question, drawing directly from what we've just discussed in these sources. Given the details here on speed, maneuverability, and detection for these newest missiles, how might defense strategies and the technology itself need to keep adapting, and how quickly?
Yeah, how do you effectively counter capabilities that are evolving this rapidly? Definitely
Mhm.
something for you to think about.